everyone. Welcome to dark mode, which is now enabled.
Hello, everybody. Yay, we have such an amazing guest today. I'm super stoked. I know you're stoked, Jane, because you worked with her for how long? Like,
Almost 2 years, I want to
yeah,
say. I feel like it was over a year, Jen, but time is weird now since
yeah.
COVID. It's just all blurring together. But yes, Jen is our co-founder at Brand Swan, and she's a marketing genius, and I'm so glad she was able to work us into our calendar today. We weren't sure of how that was going to come, so I wanted to make sure you guys had a good guess, and we do.
Yay, round of applause. I need like a round of applause sound. I feel like that needs to be in our
Oh.
our arsenal. Just,
Like Saved by the Bell
yeah.
laughing track, I
Yeah.
feel like maybe we should.
So,
Um,
Jen, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you.
Okay, well, I feel like Jane does the best introduction. So,
Yeah.
as far as credentials and how awesome I am, please listen to Jane. But what I'm doing now, so I'm at Back on My Feet. I am the marketing director. It is a nonprofit that works with people recovering from homelessness and addiction. So, a bit of a change because at Brand Swan, it was very much the agency life. We worked with a lot of small businesses, nonprofits, but like small, scrappy ones with lots of grassroots efforts. Whereas now we're a little bit bigger, not huge, but very focused on like end of year fundraising, donor acquisition, donor retention, things that weren't the primary focus before. So it's fun kind of going back to that world and getting to hang out with Heather and Jane and remember, I guess, my roots, because running a business was so much fun and I do miss it.
Gosh, well, technically you're still doing it. I mean, covertly. I'm like, hey, come to our annual meeting?
Yeah, I'm at a lot of the meetings.
Yeah, I mean, we probably talk about you every day. So for us, it's sort of like you haven't left, and I'm really grateful for that because I love our partnership. Um, okay, well, can we dive right
Awkward
in?
emotions. So
I
I
know.
always give Jane the little heart hands. I'm
The
giving you
heart.
heart hands right now.
And
Oh.
speaking of heart hands, can anyone do the Gen Z heart? What is that? I cannot put my fingers
The
and
what?
it's like freaking me out, man. They do like this weird upside down heart with their fingers. And they're
Oh
like,
yeah, looks like a crip.
triangle.
Looks like Crips, like Crips
I'm
and
like,
Bloods,
what
like
is
some like gang sign, like gang
Oh
gang.
god.
Yeah.
Like what is happening?
I don't know.
I
I
saw
can't do
a funny
it.
video that was like it went through a list of prompts for a mother and her daughter, and so things like making a heart, which I didn't expect to be different, and it was, and things like talking on the phone,
Yeah.
because my kids and kids 10 years younger than us never had like the old flip phones. They haven't used phones on the wall, right? They're only using cell phones, so their phone is flat. It's a flat palm.
Huh.
And you're right. So when they do a call sign, they don't do it like with the pinky and the thumb.
Yeah,
They do it like just a flat book on their face.
that is so funny. I didn't even
That
like
is
think
funny.
about that. So yeah, before we get into the data and using data to
Yeah.
decide with Miss Jane Clark and our guest Jenn Wells, we are going to catch up with Cox and Clark.
Catching up with Cox and Clark. Woo! I love
Ridiculous.
it.
Jane Clark, what is going on with you? Do it, my dear.
You know what? I was thinking, Jane Clark, what's going on with you? And let's be real, guys. Like this month, the last 3 months have been hard. Like I've been diving deep. I've been working. I've been coaching. I've been stretching and growing. And there's been times I've even broken myself, but I always stay in the room, and I just have to say I'm really proud of myself for that. Just kind of toot my own horn here since it's a little bit different because I like to do some self-deprecation for humor. But in this
Yes.
case, I'm damn proud of myself, and I just I'm just so excited about my team. And these ladies are stepping up. They are carving out their own roles. They are showing up every day. It is phenomenal what my team is doing without me. And I always thought, because I am a perfectionist, so I always thought, well, hell, am I a micromanager? And I don't think I am, luckily. But it's just so wonderful seeing everyone blossom, and they're just impressing the hell out of me. And sometimes I cry about it because it's like it feels like
Oh,
magic. It feels
I
magical. Like how
love
did this
that.
happen? Like one day I woke up and I just had the most supporting team. Well, I think Jen actually taught me how to build a team, but whatever. Um, but
Right.
it's just I love it. But it's hard. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. It's hard right now in the economy. But that never stopped me before. 15 years and counting. So that's what's happening with me. Resiliency.
Yeah, you
Yes.
know what? I have a quote on in my closet. My closet is teal for everyone who doesn't know, so it's like
Yeah.
a place of beauty and inspiration, and not just a closet. And it's growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone.
Yes, and I'm so uncomfortable.
I'm so uncomfortable, right? Yeah, I have felt similar ways throughout the last, oh my God, almost 2 years now at Back on My Feet.
Well,
But
tell us
yeah,
about you. What are you doing?
yeah. Okay. Well, it's just background on Back on My Feet. There have been some streamlining of positions, which I think we all know what that means. And the team is a lot smaller and scrappier than it was. And so just constantly being put in this spot where we need to troubleshoot, we need to figure out how to do more with less, do more with less. That's totally been the mantra this whole time. So I've been pushing, kind of like Jane was saying, lots of growth, lots of like, okay, we've got to figure out AI. It's been amazing. I can create content in half the time now. Figuring out how to recruit volunteers, because you can't really do that as a small business owner, but in the nonprofit world, you can get away with so much free help. And it's so amazing how many people are inspired to care about the mission, right? And come in and support that. So, yeah, figuring out how to build teams using interns, volunteers, all of the resources available to us. Definitely a lot of growth. And I will tell you, as far as recent news, I was getting into a pretty negative headspace, and I went to an amazing retreat this past weekend with Heather Klemansky.
Hey!
Yeah, because she's amazing. And I feel so refreshed. Like, I thought, okay, a day of mindfulness, how much can this really fix me? I wanted to go because it's always good for me, but like, it was a 180, right? I feel so much better, and nothing tangibly changed. I just needed a day away from my wonderful kids, away from my job, to just focus on like me and meditating and thinking and not having my phone out. I think that like screen free time, and it was like magic. So now I'm like cooking and talking to my husband in a nice voice again.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Love
I
that.
love it. That's
Screen free
phenomenal.
retreats, highly recommend.
Yeah, self-care people, and Heather's awesome. Speaking of Heather Cox, what's up with you?
I love Jen. I love that you were able to get away and just relax and get away from the kids. We all need that for sure. What is going on with me? Oh, okay. So I finished my book. Yay. The Connected Kid. Jane has a copy. I think I'm on like the 5th edit though, Jane. So I need to get the newly edited one over to you. The website's almost done. I just finished, and I've just been buttoning things up. And going yesterday, Jane and I had a meeting about like the next couple of topics that we're going to talk about on Dark Mode. And I was like, you're going to make me work, aren't you? Because like I am finally caught up with all my projects somewhat. And I feel like I'm not like so overwhelmed anymore. So now I can just kind of, I think I was getting a little burnt out. So I was like, my body is now like, okay, you need to chill. So I've just been working a couple hours a day and then like taking naps and stuff.
You gotta do it. We can't be on all the time.
No,
we have
cannot.
to recharge, even extroverts.
Yeah, and summertime is a great time to do it, especially if like you work more like seasonally with a lot of your clients. Summertime can be a slower time for restaurants. So yeah, I'm just kind of slowing down a little bit for the summer, but I know September is right around the corner. We're already thinking about September content for clients. So
yeah, 3rd and 4th quarter is going to be insane.
Yeah, it's going to be nuts. So, but yeah, so that's what's going on with me. So
awesome.
Yay, we all
I'm
got
glad to
updates.
be here with you, ladies.
Yes. So today we're, like you said, we're talking about using data to decide. I'm super excited about you guys to talk about this conversation because like everybody kind of needs to have a data focused marketing strategy and not just throwing spaghetti at the freaking wall and seeing what sticks. So I'm really super stoked about this, Jane.
And I'm not a very structured person. You can ask Jen. I don't follow procedures. It's none of that stuff. So for me, when I found out that my efforts could be tracked, it really kind of was persuasively, as it should, kind of pulled my focus. And I'm like, wow, like the more we know, da 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 da. But yeah, here's what you guys don't know. So if you are collecting data from your website, actually, I'm curious if anyone is. If you are not collecting data on your website, if you don't have Google Analytics installed, you definitely should. Even if you're not doing anything with it right now, because Google can't go back and retroactively get the data. It has to be installed from the get-go, so it can't retroactively figure out who visited your website 3 years ago if you haven't set this up. That's one thing. But focus on getting it at least installed and then let it go at least 6 months, and that 6 months will hopefully give you an indication of your visitors. A full year would be ideal, again, because of what Heather said, being seasonal, you might get more traffic during certain months, and just noticing those trends is pretty key. So let's talk a little bit about what you can track and what it all means. So the first thing you can track, and this, by the way, guys, is for the new Analytics 4. Um, the other version is no longer pulling any data. So if you haven't updated your website, from July 2023 on, then you're no longer tracking your data. So definitely get that switch. If you need help, me and Heather can help you. Just reach out to us and we can get you set up. So that's number one. And number two, let's talk about what you can track, because I think it would blow people's mind. And some of this information is not only just for like the business owner, the marketing team data, but let me see here. Give me a second. It's taking forever to load. Cool. It's not as, so I wish it was as robust as last time, but there was a time on Facebook that you could actually target a man between the ages of 34 and 50 who's gay, who works at Walmart and speaks Spanish. And so unfortunately, we can't track that data, that specific data, due to privacy laws.
Yeah.
And
Well,
what
some
you
of
kind of
it's
can do.
good. Like they're
privacy laws.
Yeah.
But the first thing you can track is users. And the users I kind of consider to be like sort of the unique user. And the more users you have in your back end, in your reports, your life cycle, and your acquisition overview, you're going to see, in this example, there's 78,000, which is kind of a lot, but this is your reach, ultimately. If you're used to doing social media strategies, the reach would kind of be what the users are. And then you have sessions, and this shows the number of individuals actually browsing your website over a certain time period. And you can even track it live. So you could go into your Google Analytics right now and go to that section and take a peek, and it'll show you the traffic on your site in real time. Now, if you are a small business owner, you might be disappointed. You're going to get, 1 to 5 users at any given point. But the more content you have on your site, you can really start bringing in these users. And we don't want quantity over quality, right? So we want to get the users who we want to reach out to, and not just everyone. And so using that data, you'll be able to kind of figure out, okay, well, how long are people staying on the page? When are they bouncing? Are they watching videos? Are they not watching videos? You can even track where they click on the website using heat maps. So if you're finding that in your particular industry, no one is scrolling to the bottom, then that's information you know. And then you have to put all the call to actions, for example, at the top. However, I think you'd be equally surprised how many people scroll, especially if you're on a mobile phone. Scrolling is effortless. You scroll, you get your content. And so I personally don't have an issue with a long website that's scrollable. But again, if you're tracking it, you can put little tags and events in so you can see, okay, well, users are at least getting to this point. And it's just a great way to figure out your content strategy. The next thing you can track are new users. So again, the unique stuff, the average engagement time. Now this one is a tough one. So when I have to convince someone that their homepage is being effective, because people don't stay on the homepage very long, right? Because it's almost like a guide. It's like, hey, welcome. Here's all the shit you can do when you visit our website. You can go here. If you're interested in this, go there. Like that's what the homepage should do. So if they're bouncing from the homepage, it's not the end of the world. You definitely want them to engage on, you can have like quizzes and that'll increase your engagement time. But the longer they're on there, the more interested they are. And so if you're finding a high bounce rate and people are getting there and leaving, it's possible that they don't know where they are, or you're not being specific in what you do. And so they feel like they're at the wrong place. And maybe you can take a look at what keywords you're using and seeing, is this really the target market?
You know what I wonder is, does Google have a way to differentiate people who are on the website and are active versus people who have just walked away from their computer?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
That's illegal, Jen. But
Oh,
yeah,
they have to look into the living room and see
I
if they're
know.
there or
They'll be
not.
like,
Well, I don't
camera
know, based on like
activated.
mouse movement or something. I don't know.
Well, you know when like college kids do tests from home during COVID, and they had this software on that would actually monitor them, and it would know if they looked away from the monitor. It would
No
they would know.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
wild. So I'd imagine that some higher micromanaging companies would install that just for, keeping track of the time their employees are giving back to the company. But that aside,
And then they had those little like mouse mover thingies where it moves your mouse for you, and then people could just like go do whatever, and then like, but then
oh
they caught on
yeah,
to that. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
the remote thing. So, but yeah, you'd be surprised what we can track, but legally what we can track is different. Basically, to you aren't allowed to have this data track back to a single user. Like the goal is that it's all anonymous, as far as the reports are concerned. So long as you're honoring that rule, you'll be okay. But you can't target like someone specifically, like, hey, I saw you were on our website. But you know who can target that? Chat applications. So you have like a little chat box on your website, and sometimes after 5 minutes, they'll be like, hey, my name is this insert fake person here. I'd love to help you. Ask your question.
It's totally a real person, Jane. It's not fake.
Yeah. And so now, if you actually ask a question, what do they know? They know that you've been on the website for at least 5 minutes and you're interested enough to ask a question, which now makes you a more qualified lead, right? So it's interesting, being able to find the patterns of what are the conversion patterns that make someone, convert. And again, what is a conversion? And Jen, I'm gonna I want to bounce this back to you, but I also want to finish what I'm going to say. So hold on to that thought for me, Jen, because the conversion is a whole, and what you can track and what actually defines a conversion is a whole nother story. But yeah, so the bounce rate is basically the percentage of non-engaged sessions. So people who are leaving less than 10 seconds. And again, this could be because your website isn't loading fast enough, and they're impatient because they just want a question answered really quickly. There's a variety of reasons why people bounce. But yeah, within 10 seconds typically is what the bounce rate tracks. And you can see that in pages and screens. Pages and screens. I cannot talk today. And that's where you would go to find that in the new GA4. God, there's so much. It's just so much you can track.
I was going to say, I don't think you can list everything.
So
Let me just focus on the ones
data.
that matter to me. One is, what the hell are people even using to browse your website? Like, this is so key, and I work with a lot of other designers, and they're like, oh, mobile first, mobile first, mobile first. Like, I get that. I get you want it to be mobile first, but why? We're told, well, it has to perform well. I get that. But unless you know your data, your data might find that, hey, everyone's searching for you. They're 85 years old on a PC using Internet Explorer,
Oh, God.
right? And so if you know that's 85% of your audience, you can't design for mobile first.
I think Internet Explorer is finally gone, right?
It is. You know what?
Isn't it called Edge?
It feels 90s at this point. Edge is just fine. It's just whatever tool you want to use. They're all the freaking same, honestly. It's like a two-party system at this point when it comes to like.
Many web designers are freaking out that Internet Explorer is still a thing. It's gone. It's gone.
It's gone forever. I bet you there are some dinosaur companies that are still using it, but they're a great client for me. So come talk to me, guys. We'll get you up to date. But yeah, I love the fact that you can see what someone's using, what screen size they're using. It's wild, but you need all that information so you know, hey, we're going to redesign my website, but who is our audience? And it'll tell you 50% women. It'll tell you, it's in this age bracket. They'll tell you they're on this device. And that is just information you can wield to make the best decisions possible. So I think that's pretty key. And then as far as what a conversion rate is, you have to know, in order for you to be happy with what you're doing, you have to have some goals, right, Jen?
Oh yeah.
Like, what do you want? What do you want? And then let's get you there, instead of just saying, oh, well, these are the best practices. Let's just do all this shit. Like, no, some of it could actually hurt you. You have to know your audience, and you have to know what your goal is, being for them to reach out to you and call, or do you want them to fill out a form? Do you want them to buy a product? Like, and then, tracking that from wherever they came from.
Is it goals time?
I think it might be. I think so.
Okay. Well, I get excited about goals, but and everyone knows this. My own personal goals are elaborate and charted out in many different forms. But in this case, I think I have fallen prey to the same problem repeatedly, and that's part of the reason I care so much about this. So when I first started freelancing, I didn't know how to set goals for my business, and I ended up picking just some random numbers. I want to make X amount of money, and I didn't know why. And learning how to do that more strategically was incredible. And so in the case of being a freelancer or, a small business owner, what kind of life do you want to live? How much money do you need to support that? That's how much your business needs to bring in. And then you can start looking at historical data to break down which avenues are the best choices to bring in that money, right? If you don't have historical data, it's harder, but that's why you need to start tracking. And you almost need some amount of analytics on hand before you can really set meaningful marketing goals. Otherwise, you're just making up numbers. As far as setting marketing goals within a larger organization, and this has been kind of a learning point for me at Back on My Feet, because, with Jane, we were the business. So it was easy to set the marketing goals because the marketing was the business, it was all one piece. Whereas now I'm a department, and I'm doing air quotes because it's a one-person department, but I'm a department within a larger nonprofit, and I'm not responsible for bringing in all of the money for the organization, thank goodness. And I have to figure out, okay, of the portion I'm responsible for, how can I support that with marketing while still supporting the other departments in their efforts, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's where there has been this really amazing workshop series I've been taking called The Next CMO. And that's really focused on, taking a look at the organizational goals, breaking that down into your department goals. And then from there, so we talked about like which platforms can bring in that money for you, but also which metrics support that. So in my case, it's not just revenue goals, right? There's the fundraising goals, but there's also, in order to get a certain amount of donations, I have to look at where that money is coming from. So we have our ongoing donors who have been donating for years, we have first-time donors, and we have our recurring monthly subscribers. And the retention rate for each of those donors is vastly different. This was actually really surprising to me. So I'm sorry, I have a lot of trouble staying out of details and talking high level. So you guys.
No, I love it. I'm just, well, yeah. I mean, I'm like glued to the screen. I'm like, tell me more, Jen. Tell me more.
All right, here's the detailed breakdown. So in this example, the ongoing donors who have donated more than once, that retention rate is 40%. The people who donated once last year, that retention rate is only like 18%, or it was really low. It was 18 or 19%. And then the monthly subscribers, those are the people that it's coming off their credit card every month. They're not paying attention. That's 90%. So looking at those numbers gave me a much more accurate picture of how much money we were going to bring in this year, and also made me realize how much we have to make up with new donors, because we're going to lose. When you average all of our money together, we're using those kind of like pie chart categories, it's about 50% that we can count on coming in again from last year. So that's 50% of our income that has to be new every single year, which is insane. And before we were planning for that, we didn't have a marketing plan.
Go ahead, Jen.
Sorry.
That's the only bad thing about not being on videos. I can't see when your mouth opens, but
oh, it's always open, Jane. Yeah, but yeah, so like without the data, we didn't know there was a gap. We just had no idea. And now we do, and we can address it, and we can put marketing strategies into place to kind of fill that extra 50% in. Okay, sorry.
That's beautiful. I mean, Jen, that's a perfect example. That's exactly what people need to hear, like that's how data can actually transform or fix any problems. It also says that, hey, when you have to make someone pay and take 5 minutes to do so, the conversion rate's less. But if you get them on and then they're reoccurring, now that 10% is probably people who stopped paying or the credit card bounced, right? So then you have more information on that, and it's phenomenal. And if you don't have data, guys, there are industry benchmarks that you can find, and you can just Google it. The amount of data that you can find online is wonderful. Now, is the data real? It's hard to say. and when I say real, I'm putting more air quotes in there. You don't know how diverse the audience is. You don't know the details of the study and like what the, objectives were. So we just have to start there.
Yeah. Also comparing apples to apples, because if you search for, email conversion rate, okay, that's great. But if you search for, in my case, I'm looking for nonprofit benchmarks. So it's, new donor conversions from donor prospects. So that's very specific too. And again, like maybe it's different for our particular niche of, you could call us a fitness nonprofit or a homelessness nonprofit. I'm not going to find those benchmarks. That's too specific.
Yeah.
But definitely like the industry that you're in, nonprofits versus retail versus real estate, those are all going to be dramatically different. And I remember when I was still at Brand Swan, we had a client in the entertainment industry. Those email open rates, the benchmark is way higher than some of the other ones.
Like 10,000 views on the reels right now. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and so, you can say like, oh, the average email open rate you're shooting for is, I feel like it used to be 30%, but it's down to 20, like it's gone down. But for entertainment, it's higher, right? And for nonprofits, it's higher, which is kind of sad because ours is lower than that. But it should be higher if we were competing with the averages.
And what's wild is, certain people who certain tools have certain behaviors, So I'm going to leave it at that. But you can niche down so far and be like, okay, well, my segment is they're right of center, they go to church, or they go clubbing at night. I mean, just learning what the behavior of these people is another layer that you can add on, so you can really speak directly to them and increase the quality of your conversions.
What's funny is I tend to dismiss certain demographics or behaviors because I think people's interests are more important than like what race they are or what I don't know. But that example right there was perfect because that tells you a very important thing about their schedules, right? If they're going to church, they are waking up a lot earlier, and the people that are clubbing are out at night, because we've sent emails, again, in the entertainment industry at 11 p.m. on like a Saturday night, or maybe it was midnight. It was really late. But our audience was people that like music, like going to the bar, like partying, and that email had a great open rate. It was amazing.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
Yeah. So anyway, that's where that's where you have to check and see, does this demographic actually matter for this particular thing, right? Like sometimes it really matters to know whether you're speaking to women versus men, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't track everything. But like I was saying, if you don't have analytics installed right now, just do it. Just get it going. Because again, Google can't go back and retroactively tell you who your visitors are. So even if you don't do anything with the data, just get it going. It also can't track any offline conversions, which makes sense, right? So if you are in the process of, let's say you're clicking on an ad or something, and then you're like, you know what, I'm just going to call the person instead. So now that conversion can't be tracked because you left the system. So people will do that, and we call that like dark social, where people will share things like in messages and whatnot, Heather. And can you tell us a little bit about like what can't be tracked in that?
There's so many things in social media that cannot be tracked, and it's kind of funny that how much we don't know, and people think that they understand about like social media analytics, but a lot of the time it's like those shares are an indicator for sure. But the thing is, we don't know is, okay, I can go to Instagram and click that share button, right? And that will, obviously give you some information and data. But if I go and grab the link and then text it to my friend, you have no idea that I just did that.
Yep.
So there is so much information that we do not know. And with the pulling back of analytics on social media, like you said, like you were able to pinpoint target specific demographics. Like there was this one guy who wanted an internship with Gary Vee. So much so that he created a Facebook ad campaign directly targeting the demographic of exactly who Gary Vee was, knew exactly where Gary Vee lived, and then like did like a radius around and like did a geofence. So whenever Gary Vee was walking around New York City in his little bubble, he would get fed ads specifically for this guy who wanted to become a Gary Vee intern. So like it used to be bonkers, but now you can't do that anymore. That the data, and especially you got to also think about how the devices are no longer playing ball with the apps. So Apple, right? Like every single day, Apple is asking me if I want to allow all of my photos to be shared with a specific app. And then I'll say, nope, I'm going to limit access. And that just takes away so many data points for that app. So you have to think about how many people are no longer opting in to be tracked, are opting their photos out of being shared constantly, turning off their microphones and cookies. There's so many different things that people are doing now to protect their privacy, and the devices are also doing the same. So yeah, a lot of data is now like you can't track it. And that's why it's so important to have like an SEO, social media first, data first, data driven strategy, so that you can, whatever data you have, at least that like, okay, this is the data that I can utilize. And if you're like Jane said, if you're not utilizing Google Analytics for your website, you might as well. And from the social media side of things, you can actually track your data for social media via Bing.com. I think you can also do it for Google now, but I haven't been in my Google console in forever, ever since they like changed everything over. I would point to Jane Clark for anything Google Analytics because I am not a Google Analytics girly anymore. I used to be. I used to use it constantly with all my clients. I still do when I do websites, but Bing.com is great because you can actually attach your social media profiles to the back end of Bing, which is awesome. So you can track ranking and I think there was like something else. There's like this little graph. It's reach and then page ranking and then clicks, I believe, but I'm not sure on the clicks because they may have taken that away too. But yeah, I say all this to say that we can never really fully know the analytics, and the analytics of everything is going to be a little skewed because of the devices no longer sharing information with, but like, let's say if you have a Google tablet, obviously Google's going to share information with Google. If,
Samsung, et cetera.
Yeah. So,
well, I was just thinking too, Google Maps, right? What you're talking about geolocating, like certain
I would hire
fitness apps and Strava. Like there's certain things that we've gotten very comfortable letting have our locations. And so, maybe those are the platforms. If you need to geolocate, maybe those are the platforms to consider using, right? Like which apps do you know will have people's data?
What was that platform that used to just let you like check in?
Oh,
shit. What the hell was that? It's 15 years old.
Oh my God. No, what was it used to be called? It was a lot of people used it for Foursquare, right?
Foursquare. That's right.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Yeah, because a lot of people used to check into restaurants and review restaurants on Foursquare. So I used to do a lot of managing of the Foursquares. Oh, I miss Foursquare.
What do you think the death of that? Why do you think that died, Heather?
I have no idea.
It did it.
I'm thinking the technology, and they didn't because I'm assuming maybe it died because of COVID, because everybody stopped going everywhere. Couldn't check into your house, right? And then they probably, didn't get traction once we opened back up, and then they didn't pivot to attract more customers, and then they probably died.
Well,
like
also, I think Facebook included that in their thing, like, hey, check in here. I think that's like a...
Well, Instagram, you can also check in now, which I feel like a lot of people don't utilize.
I had no idea that was even a thing.
Yes. So it was crazy. I actually went to... my favorite restaurant. I've mentioned them multiple times on, I think, Into the Black and Dark Mode here. Le Fable. Le Fable is a delicious French cuisine restaurant down in Rehoboth Beach. I'm going there in 2 weeks. I'm super excited.
That sounds amazing.
Oh my God. Yummy. I will take pics and send to you because the chicken cordon bleu is like ridiculous. But oh shit, where was I going with that, Jane?
You've been hanging out with me too
Check-ins.
much. Oh yeah, check-ins.
Oh yeah, check-ins. So I took pictures of my food. I checked in at La Fable on Instagram, and I tagged the location in my stories. That story was reaching so many other people that I didn't even realize would, because like I don't know how, but it attaches now to a map. So if I click on that location in the story, it takes me to this like app part of Instagram that shows that I checked in, and people can actually see what I posted right on Fable's like location. So,
that's so cool.
I'm thinking maybe that's the future, right? People checking in with us, checking in on like looking at the maps and the data and seeing, because if people aren't checking it, or like we're not getting additional data points due to, clamping down on social media or devices not sharing. I mean, maps have always been. What is that, Waze? Have you guys heard of Waze?
Oh yeah, I use that pretty much exclusively to get someplace.
Yeah, and like you can have a profile on there and like talk to people.
Ugh, God forbid.
While you're in traffic. Like, I really do think maps are like maybe the data, like the place to get data moving forward. I don't know. That's a good point.
That's interesting.
Good point.
It also is like the demographics are wild right now because like you've seen those memes where it's like, where are the 30 and 40-year-olds hanging out? And we're like, bitch, we're at home. It has a glass of wine and a bathrobe and a lovely white couch. And we're like, bitch, we're at home because we got to pay our mortgage,
Yeah.
We're going to use the shit out of it because we're paying for it, And
Yeah.
houses, pricey.
Yeah,
but anyway.
for sure.
Yeah, but if we aren't leaving the house, right, as millennials or entrepreneurs or whatever, then we need to be targeted a completely different way.
Yeah.
How do we track that, right?
And we are, and mainly it's through social media and Google and search engine optimization. I feel like people need to play the long game here now.
And memes. You know how many memes my friend sent me? That's the only way we talk, is just through memes.
That's what is getting the most reach and engagement right now on Instagram, are those little like meme boxes, like the reels with like the little, I don't know, they're like clips, and then people turn them into memes. Like that's getting the most traction right now over there. Like over anything else, which I find very strange. So, another place to look for data is Giphy. I mean, Giphy is a great place to gather data as well. I mean, there's so many different places, but using the data to decide, the best place to help you to put all of that together to help you to decide is ChatGPT. I don't care. I'm going to say it.
No, it's fine because you can ask it to research for you and it pulls out actual real data, data.
Also taking your own data sets. So what I'll do is I'll take 3 months, 6 months of my Facebook analytics and download that into an Excel spreadsheet and then upload that into ChatGPT. And then I'll say, visualize this data in a line graph or a bar graph, and then it will spit out that information. And I say, okay, well, what are some of the data points that I need to understand about this graph? And then it'll give me that information. Then I'll say, okay, what are some holes, or what are some weak points in my data that I need to focus on? And then it'll give me that information. So really utilize AI to help you read your data, because not a lot, do you know how many times I have to send analytics to a client and then I have to make a call with them because I send them the information and I think that I put it in a way that they can read it, but they still don't understand it. So I'm utilizing my expertise and the analytical, literally computer of ChatGPT to analyze my data so that I can actually speak it more easier and actually include that information in the analytics. So, and that gives us a better understanding of what to do what to
absolutely.
decide about our data, if we should continue with this marketing campaign, if we should pivot from having a button from the bottom of the website to the top of the website. Like there's so many different data points that we can, pull out with the use of AI. So don't forget AI, guys.
We did a campaign for the Dollar Restaurant Association, and we found out through data that basically they were trying to reach their clients, but they were getting no traction. And so now they knew they could stop, drop the job board, for example, and really focus where the money is, right? So data's the best, I think.
Yeah. Can I ask a question?
Yeah. No. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Heather,
yeah.
This is not contributing to the conversation. This is for my own information.
But it's also for the information of everybody else. So ask away, ma'am.
You said you're using ChatGPT to analyze data?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I had trouble with that, but I don't think I've tried it with straight up numbers, like Excel sheets of numbers. I tried it with a chart we have like member stories from people who have gone through our program. And so it's a whole interview, and then maybe there's a few like quotes or a few standout points that are in separate boxes. But one of the issues that I had was I was trying to find quotes relating to X topic, and I wanted it to go through the list for me versus manually going through all these stories. And it kept inventing quotes, like kept making them up.
Yeah.
No, what?
Yeah, or I had a couple times where it said it couldn't parse the uploaded document. So are there tricks to
what kind of document did you upload?
I don't remember if it was a CSV or an Excel, but it wasn't happy with it one time. So I don't know, but do you have like tips for what ChatGPT likes as far as uploading, supplementary documents?
Yes. So do you are you using the premium version of ChatGPT?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I've been using Excel spreadsheets, the CSV. I'll even do sometimes Word document. You can even connect your Google Drive to your ChatGPT to access your Google Sheets if necessary.
Oh my God, that's gonna take over the world.
Yeah, I know, right? But as long as you have the data analyzer switched on, which I think if you're using GPT-4 but it does have a problem reading like Word document tables, if that makes sense. Okay. It's weird, and sometimes it won't read PDFs. When was the last time you tried to have it analyze something?
It was a few months ago. And like I said, I haven't tried with straight up data. So I think it might be because it does a great job with content creation.
Yes.
And I've heard it does a great job with data analysis, but I was kind of merging the two, right? I was like, analyze the content, not analyze data. So maybe that was the problem.
So what I do if I want it to analyze like content, I'll give it like a PDF of the content or even an image. Like I'll grab like a PNG and then I'll tell it to read the image. And then after it reads the image and it gathers it in like a text format, that's when I ask the question, okay, so from the text that you extracted from the image, what is some information about blah, blah, blah. So it does need to do it in 2 steps because it's silly and it doesn't like to it can't do like 2 things at once.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. I've noticed that before too. Like after I've had it written in email, and then I'll ask a question. I'm not telling it to write another email. I'm asking a question, and it'll say, "Oh, based on the answer that I just gave you to the question, here's the rewritten email."
Right.
So it really once you start it on something, it's primed for that task, and it wants to keep doing that task.
Yes. 100%. Yeah. I always have to tell it hey, so now I need you to start on a brand new thing that is around this topic, but I need this instead. So you really have to computational thinking. We were talking about this last week, Jane, on the ChatGPT Chronicles about computational thinking and just making sure that you don't. Yeah, because if you tell it not to do something, it will do it.
Yeah.
So
I've had that happen so many times because there's certain words that it overuses in the nonprofit world, and I tell it not to use those words, and then all of a sudden they're all over the place.
Yes.
I'm like, okay.
So I'll create my custom GPTs with those words that we don't want to use, like dive, delve, embrace. Those are the words that ChatGPT loves to use. But yeah, I mean, just just make sure, don't use the words like don't do this, but say do this, and then leave out the things that you don't want it to do, because then it'll just like latch on to that, and it's obnoxious. So
I feel like it's a skill that helps both for the AI, but also as a parent, right? And
yes.
So some people who are having trouble imagining it for ChatGPT, just imagine your kid, right? Okay, so if you tell them not to, they have a new toy and they're throwing it at the windows, and you're telling them not to do that, tell them where they can throw it instead, right? So like, just treat it like a 5-year-old, and
I do this with my cat. Just redirect it to the scratch post, okay?
That is actually true in so many cases, including like elder care with dementia and Alzheimer's, is you don't like tell them to stop. You like redirect them to like go do something better. So redirection is always the winning combo with kids, AI, and elderly.
And me.
And Jane, yes. So Jane, do we have any like news notifications? I didn't look up any news because we had Jenn here today, but anything on your radar that you wanted to talk about?
Just a little bit of old news, but again, if you haven't updated your website since July 2023, you probably aren't using the right version of Google Analytics, and you're going to have to reinstall it. It only takes like 5 minutes. It's not that big of a deal, but it is not collecting data right now if you have not done the step.
Well, so I have a few things about data. One is all these crazy ass data breaches. Like the new AT&T data breach that literally exposed every single person who uses AT&T. Like there's nobody that it did not touch. So if
they won't find me on that list, okay? I'm not.
I don't know. I think I am. I am T-Mobile. Isn't T-Mobile and AT&T the same?
I'm on T-Mobile.
Again, I don't give a shit. Have my data. What are you going to do with it? Like that's.
They pay for that identity theft shit. Because they got like
so
and had it for like years.
Okay, so let's say that you are in a data breach, and this is a tip for everybody out there. I have, I had my social security number stolen, I think in like when I was 14. And so I've been really careful with it, but lock your credit reports. That's all you have to do. You have to freeze your credit report. That's all you have to do. Because if they try to open up a credit card in your name or open up a bank account, they can't because your credit is frozen. You actually have to go in and unlock it, verify like with a bunch of words and questions, and then you unlock it, and then you go do your thing, and then once you're done, you go back in and lock it. So just lock your shit, guys, because there is going to be a continual, constant barrage of data breaches moving forward because nobody knows how to keep things safe. And with AI, it is becoming easier and easier to create these worms, these hacking softwares to, get your shit. So
terrifying.
Yes. 2-factor authentication, freeze your credit reports, very strong passwords, and switch up your passwords. So that was it really. Just and then there's this one article that kind of goes with the data breach thing. There's 1 billion victims of data breaches so far this year alone. It is only July, and there's been 1 billion victims of data breaches. So everybody just be safe with your data, and lock your shit. I guess that's
and use unique passwords will definitely be my recommendation.
Yes.
Awesome.
And this takes me back to the book. The book that I wrote called The Connected Kid actually has a section on strong passwords, 2-factor authentication. So this is actually a great book for parents as well. So just wanted to throw that out there. A freaking shameless plug.
Okay, wait. I don't know about the book. Tell me about the book.
Okay. So the book is called The Connected Kid. I'm going to be releasing this information soon, but I guess I can just drop it here. But I don't want to tell the story to the socials yet, but I was a victim of grooming as a teenager. I had some dude in Canada, I believe he was 19 or 20, and we met on a gaming site called pogo.com. and he basically groomed me for years, and then found my email years later, and it was so I am a victim but also a survivor, and I've also been stalked and bullied in my adulthood, so I created an app to help, or excuse me, a book and maybe an app, but a book for parents to help with parental controls on every single thing that you can think of, from like Xbox to PlayStation to your Chrome, your any browser to any device, from Apples to Androids. There's things about how to set up parental controls. There's a section about two-factor authentication. There's a section about cyberbullying. There's a section about not sharing your kids for content. So that is the book that is basically helping parents and kids with online safety. So
I need that. My kids are starting to get into screen time and
I'm going to send it to you.
Yeah, please. Yes. Or I'll buy it when it comes out.
No, I'm going to send it to you for a review, please. That would be wonderful. And so I can put your name on the website too. That'd be amazing.
Oh my gosh, so exciting. Okay, well I think that's a freaking wrap.
Yes, that is a freaking
dark
wrap.
mode.
Sorry, we're just like talking. It's okay. Hey, dude, we're allowed. This is our freaking podcast, Jane.
It's true. It really is. Yeah. So my team has to hurt me, because I will just go off the rails. We're probably going rogue. Jane's going rogue.
So, Jen, tell us where we can find you and how we can connect with you, and if there's anything else you want to leave to our audience.
Oh, okay. So I do have my own website. It is swanbossjen, Jen with 2 N's.com. And I have my LinkedIn handle is the same, so feel free to connect, say hi, set up a virtual coffee. Right now, really just interested in networking and getting to know people, and especially in Delaware. Like, obviously, the rest of the nation's great, but I feel like I don't have as strong ties to Delaware as I did when I was running Brand Swan. So,
yeah,
fellow Delawarean entrepreneurs, please connect with me.
Yes.
And then I was going to say, for like a last little tip, this is one thing I do want to mention for the news notifications trending. So I was asking someone about cookies recently, because that's been on my mind. Like, what are we going to do when we can't advertise because cookies are going away? And the long and short of what they told me was there's going to be something new to replace it, right? So the word cookies and exactly what cookies, how they function might go away, but there will be a replacement and there will be something. And, it's not like online ads are going to go away. So anyone who's been freaking out about that, you don't need to panic. It's not going away. It's just changing.
It's going to be like the equivalent of adding an SSL certificate on your site where it's not secure Chrome. Awesome.
Oh my God,
okay.
that is so funny.
Well, that is a wrap. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next Thursday at 11 a.m. and we'll be talking about... What are we going to be talking about?
What are we talking about, Jane? We just had a meeting about this yesterday.
We just had a meeting. All right. Yes, we are talking about...
search engine optimization.
Search engine optimization, which I really enjoy.
I know, me too. I'm super stoked. Oh, and I guess we can also... It literally transitions from this episode of data into SEO, so let's get it. I'm excited.
Perfect. Okay. Dark mode disabled.